In this video for Positive Maths, we're going to learn about decimals. So first of all, we're going to look at a number here which has a decimal. So 1.123. So the blue number, so number 1, is a whole number. Then we have our decimal point. And then 1, 2 and 3 are part of a whole number. So if we talk about the decimal places, 1.1, this number has 1 decimal place. 1.12 has 2 decimal places. And 1.123 has 3 decimal places. Now we're going to discuss familiar decimals. So it's good to be familiar with some fractions and decimals that we use more often than others. So for example, we should be familiar with the fact that a half is 0.5. 1/3 is 0.333. 1/4 is 0.25. 1/5 is 0.2. As you use fractions and decimals more often, you will get familiar with some of the others as well. Just to note, we should always write 0.5, not 0.5. So we should always include the 0 before the decimal space if we're writing a fraction. So 0.8, 0.355. We do this because it just makes it clear that it is a decimal or part of a number. Now we're going to discuss the ways that we can describe decimals. So there are 2 different ways. We can have terminating decimals. So this is a decimal with a fixed number of places. So for example, 1/8 is 0.125. And we also have recurring decimals. So this is a decimal that does not have a fixed number of places. So it can continue on to infinity in some cases. So 1/3 is equal to 0.333, and the dots mean that it continues on. So let's discuss recurring decimals in a little bit more detail. So, as we know, these decimals which continue to infinity may have a pattern for recurring decimals. So, our examples, like we'd seen before, 1/3 is equal to 0.333, continuing on. We could write this as 0.3333. 2/3 is equal to 0.666, again continuing on. 0.484884. So you can see that we have a pattern building. 0.57171171. 0.89273273. So, in our first few examples, what we have is we have one number recurring, or repeating. Again, we have 6 is repeating. Here we have 48 is repeating. 571 is repeating. 273 is repeating in our last example. Okay, so now we need to learn about dot notation. We use dot notation to identify the recurring pattern with decimal numbers. So the rule is we put dots on top of the first number in the recurring block or the repeated block and the last number in the block. So the first and the last repeating numbers. We also note that if there is only one recurring number, then there is only one dot. So we might have 2 dots, we could only have 1. Usually we will see we only have 1 dot. So let's look at some examples. We have 0.7, that's 1 dot, it means 7 is recurring. In our second example we have 2 dots, 5 and 9, it means that 5 and 9 are both recurring. And in our third example we have 2 dots but with a number in between. So as we have seen, we put a dot on the first recurring number in the block and the last recurring number in the block. So that means 234 is the block that is repeating. We can have a case where we will just have one number repeating like this, so the 6 is repeated, not the 7. So we only have one recurring number. For more videos, you can find information at www.PositiveMaths.ie. You can email us at info@PositiveMaths.ie and find us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching.